Hello friends, and welcome back to Random Hearts, and welcome to the backyard. We are going to do our September garden tour today. It has been about 4 weeks, almost 5 weeks since we were out in the garden, and a lot has changed out here since we did our last garden tour. We are going to start in the garden area here, not in the flower beds and landscape, because we are basically at the end of our garden season. We have a 50% probability of frost by the 4th of September and an 80% probability of frost by the 18th of September. And we are well past the 4th. We are on the 7th of September today, and we have not had a frost yet, but we've had some cool nights. So we are getting prepared for that. But I do have an abundance of things growing in the garden right now, and we'll start right here with this garden bed. I've got some tomatoes growing. They're finally doing something. These are the Mountain Magic up front, and then I've got some Early Girl in the back, and all of my tomatoes this year seem to have a lot of trouble getting started. I don't know if it was our moist spring and early summer, or if it was the randomness of temperatures, but I'm going to create quite a lot of shadow today where I am at, so I'm going to try to stay out of the process a little. But you can see these marigolds are just going crazy. They have definitely taken off. They're a little bit wild and have kind of taken over this bed. There are some more big beef tomatoes here on the end, and I do have a couple coming on that are just about ready to harvest. We've already taken one off, and it was a delicious tomato. The green beans that are down at the end here are some jade green beans, and we've had multiple harvests off of those. They've been the best producer by far of our green beans that we grew this year, and I'm really happy with those. I will definitely do that variety again next year. Now we're going to move on to this bed here. Now this bed, we had garlic in it, and we did take that garlic out. But the onions are not doing well this year, and again, probably weather is to blame for that. Our onion bulbs are still in the ground. I don't think they're going to do well. I checked on carrots the other day. They're doing all right. They're forming some carrots, but they're very small. So we hopefully will get a couple more weeks of decent weather before we need to pull everything. We're still on the bed right here. I just flipped sides of this bed, but this is where our garlic was sitting on both sides of this row of onions. And I did take out the garlic and shared that in the last video. I dried that in the garage for about 2.5 to 3 weeks. And then I'm going to show you what I did with that garlic. I've got a couple clips right here that I will add into this to show you what I did. Now, because this was my first time working with garlic and growing garlic, I wasn't exactly sure how to go about handling the drying process, but I did decide to use this little brush. This is something that came, it's actually a baby's brush, and that seemed to take quite a bit of the dirt off of these. Then I trimmed up those root ends. This one you can see right here, there is a little bit of a black spot. I did use that garlic clove right away. That bulb was used right away, and honestly that was just a defect on the outside. It had not affected the cloves on the interior. And then I just cut that off at the stem about 1 inch above where the bulb actually starts. Now this was a very dirty and time-consuming process, but I did end up with quite a lot of garlic here. I had 2 bulbs that had some damage to them. You'll see that I set a couple of them to the side of the basket. That is because I'm going to use those up right away in my cooking, and the rest I will put into storage. Now I did decide to put these down into my crawl space. It is a little cooler down there, and I had a very good amount of garlic, and it will hopefully keep it cool enough to keep those for about 4 months. So when this garlic came out, we still had about 1.5 months worth of growing season, and I figured I had enough time to put something else in here. I did put some spinach into the bed, but when I put the spinach in, we were very wet and we had a lot of moisture coming, and we were getting some cooler daytime temperatures. But recently we've had some warmer daytime temperatures, and I don't know if the spinach is going to take off. It's not very promising. So I don't know if that's going to be a great thing there, but I did try to add some stuff into the bed so it wasn't left empty, and we could maybe use more of that bed over the season. Now I'm going to start right here with this bed. We're probably just going to talk briefly about what happened in the strawberries this year. I did add in 3 new strawberries this year, and they produced fairly well. They were the Buried Treasure Red, and I had Buried Treasure White strawberries from before, and neither of them did super great this year. We did get some strawberries, but not many. You'll see right here that I have got the same problem I had in the other bed with my marigolds just taking over. There is a pepper back here, a jalapeno. You can see this right here. I even have a couple of flowers that are trying to shoot up through all of that marigold foliage. But the marigolds have kind of taken over. I've got a basil down here, and then these 2 tomato plants here are the sweetie tomatoes. Those have been producing pretty prolifically. Now I do have this same variety over on the patio in the grow bags, and they are much bigger over there, but we think that has to do with the grow bag itself and that they're sitting on concrete, so they get a lot of thermal temperature changes that this does not get out in the open. But behind us here we've got some kale that is still going strong. You can see that it's got some pretty tall stems, and we are still harvesting off of that. I have put up I believe 7 packages in the freezer already. I've got some radishes underneath them growing, and hopefully they do something. They're kind of looking a little weak. To the side of them, we've got some green beans. These are the Blue Lake, and both varieties of green beans are pretty much done in this bed. The Blue Lake are just have a few more left on them, and then these are the Amethyst, and we loved the Amethyst green beans. We got a lot of produce off of those. And the interesting thing with the Amethyst is that when they are put into a pot and cooked, they turn from a purple color to a green color, so you can't even tell that they're a purple bean, but they're a lot easier to find on the plant itself. Now this is what is left of our peas, and we still have some flowers on them, so I haven't taken them down yet, but I am planning to take all of this down here in the next couple of days, because this section right here is where my garlic is going to be for this next season. So as soon as I can get this down, I will get it down. I will get these harvested and put up, and then this bed will be emptied out so we can put garlic in half of it. We have now moved on to the last and final garden bed in my garden. This is my 5th raised bed over here in the corner. It is underneath the shade of this elm tree that is in the neighbor's yard. And that tree does not get watered, so it seeks water in my garden bed, and a lot of this bed is filled with tree roots. And even though we prevented that by putting a weed barrier down, they're still getting through. Now I did have a pretty good lettuce harvest this year, but that was about the only thing that did well in this bed. You can tell right away this is the same winter boar kale that I have down at the other end of the bed. And this one is so much smaller, has not produced nearly as well as that one, and just not as robust. Now, it does have great flavor. It's a very healthy plant, but it's not doing quite as well. Now, the bolero carrots in this bed are doing quite well, but I did check on them about a week ago, and they're about half the size of what I would like. So I'm going to leave those in the ground for a little while. The 2 varieties of beets that I planted this year did nothing. And I will just till those in when we get this bed ready for the next season. I did end up taking out all 6 of my cabbage in this bed. None of them did well, and that was a super disappointment. Now I've had some really good luck with things this year, and I've had some big disappointments. But that is what happens when you're gardening. Let's go ahead and take a look around the yard. We're going to begin our landscape tour right here in this bed where we've got our autumn blaze maple. This maple tree has been in the ground here for about 3 years. Before that, we had a Colorado blue spruce in this space, and that was taken out about 4 years ago when we had a huge snowstorm at the beginning of September. And we are in that season of growth right now where we could have a snowstorm at any time, and it can come very quickly and very fast, and it can ruin things in our yards and our gardens. So this right here, this entire section was not here 3 years ago, and you can see that my 9 barks right here are taking on a lot of new growth this year and really taking over this bed. We've got these Russian sage right here that are starting to flop a little because we are still overhead watering. We do have plans to change out the watering system in this area to a drip irrigation, but we just have not found the time this year to do that. These French marigolds right here, the petite marigolds, did very well at the beginning of the season, but they are starting to fizzle out a little. And I did have something that was either eating them or taking them off at the roots. So I lost several of those. They smell wonderful though, and I am going to plant those again next year. We'll just have to see what we can do different there. These marigolds did amazing, and I've actually already ordered the seeds for those. They are already here, and I will be planning for that next year. In the back here, you can see my salvia that we cut back has already started to flush back some new growth, and I've even got some new spires and stalks in the back on those purple ones. The daisies right here, completely done, and I have deadheaded all of them. They are looking okay. Because we overhead water, they do have some watermarks on them from our mineral deposits. And then petunias I am not going to put in next year. They just did not do well this year. I don't know what happened. I don't know if it's the amount of water they're getting or not enough water. They just didn't do super great. Again, love these. They just took a while to take off. This is the lemon gem coral, or the lemon coral sedum. Our dianthus is done blooming. And so is our spirea right here. But look at these hydrangeas. These are the little quick fires, and they are doing amazingly. They're just turning out beautifully. Love the blooms. We just need a couple more days for them to turn that pink color, and everything in this bed looks wonderful. I'm just super happy with it. I do want to mention one thing though. Over in the corner you can see our lilac. That is actually blooming, and I'm a little shocked by that because that lilac I thought was only supposed to bloom in the spring, and here we are the first week of September and we've got blooms on that. It smells wonderful, but I don't know. It's a little weird. Everything this season has been that way. So we're going to go ahead and pan into this section here in this big long loop and look at our global arborvitaes. They are doing very well. At the beginning of the season, I was a little bit worried about them. We had a lot of winter damage to them, but you can see they've got some nice green new growth on there, doing very well. I'm super happy with what they're doing right now. We do have a lot of elm sprouts in this bed in particular, but this is the only section that we still have the large bark in. We want to get this large bark out of here, and I am hoping to get to that by the middle of October. So we'll put smaller bark in here, take out all those elm seeds, and hopefully this will be a little different story next year. This right here is doing well, but it is already starting to change color for the season. That barberry, we've got a spirea in the back that's got some new growth on it. It's kind of wild and crazy, a lot like our 9 barks are. And then as you pan into this section right here, we've got a lot of salvias that I never got the chance to cut back because I am back to work and I just did not have time. But they've got some new growth coming on them. So we've got a little bit of blooms there. Into this section, another set of salvias. And our daylilies are completely done. They're already starting to die back, and I will come in and start cleaning these beds out. I'm really impressed with these impatiens this year. They did super well in this section, and I will probably do Impatiens again in this bed because they did so well, and I love them alongside this lobelia. And we got a phlox back here still blooming. A few of my daisies are still blooming over here. They're pretty much done. I do have a couple that are coming back on, and then of course our lavender, which just smells amazing. So right here is our plum tree. This is a princess plum, and I didn't think that we would get plums on it, but we actually got about 12 plums this year off of that tree. They're pretty small, but we are going to try to make a syrup or a jelly out of them and use them up. We did end up throwing a few away because the birds had gotten to them. But as we come down onto this upper tier here, you can see that my spirea and my dogwood are doing very well. And these astilbe that we thought had died in July, they are still hanging on. They still look great, and the Brenner right next to them are doing wonderfully. They did not bloom this year, but I think we missed their bloom cycle by planting them as new transplants this year. Hostas did great this year. We had a lot of new growth on some of our hostas, but of course we had a lot of moisture this year, and things just like that love the moisture. Everything in this bed is looking pretty good. Even the dogwood in the back behind the bench has done very well. So very happy with this section. You can see I've got a hosta down here that's blooming. I don't typically like the blooms on the hosta, but that one is just particularly beautiful, so I kept it. As we move around this corner here, you'll see that the barberries that are in this bed are starting to change color a little. They're getting their fall color in there. And this, I think it's a South Dakota spruce. I'll have to check the name on it, but it has taken on a lot of new growth this year. Pretty much everything in our yard has loved the amount of moisture, with the exception of the Russian sage. Right now those are pretty floppy, but this bed did get new ground cover in it, and this is what we are putting in the entire yard. So everything will be the small bark when we are done. As we move around the corner here around our deck, this is basically a deck or a flower bed to hide the bottom of the deck and our sprinkler box. And pretty much everything in this bed is done growing for this season. We do have a new flush of growth on the dianthus in this bed, but everything else is annual with the exception of these daylilies here, and they are starting to get to the point where they just need to be cut back. They're starting to flop in the center. You can see that they've got a lot of dead already. I'm just waiting for that to die back, and then I'll cut those down so that they're not taking up too much of that bed. Now this right here, these are my 5-star grape tomatoes. Like I said earlier, tomatoes really struggled this year to get a start. But I've got a lot of tomatoes on there, and they're just now starting to put on a lot of new growth, and they are very delicious. Probably the sweetest tomato we have in our garden. As we move over into this section, we are underneath our crabapple tree. This is our spring snow crabapple, and this is all pretty much new plantings this year. This spirea is new, and so are the echinacea and the penstemon that is in the center. Echinacea are doing very well, but they are getting to the point where we're just getting pretty cool at night and not a lot of sunshine during the daytime. We'll see if those will come back next year and do their job. I do have a couple of transplants of daisies right here. Those are from another bed in the yard that they were not doing well, so I did move them. And of course, more marigolds. We've got lots of marigolds in this yard. And I do need to take out everything in this wagon here pretty soon. The annual daisies that are in here pretty much took over. These are snowland daisies, and I definitely will do some different things in this wagon next year. This bed right here over the patio area, and it goes around to the fire pit area. Again, some more daylilies. These are the Stella d'Oro daylilies. They are done blooming over here. They're starting to die back. We also have some Nepeta in this bed and some salvia. This is an annual salvia and it's still going very strong, so I love that in this bed. And the marigolds, the Dusty Miller, all doing very well. And because this one does not get overhead water, you can see why we need to change out our watering system. This one is on drip, and this Russian sage is not flopping, and it has a lot of activity on it. Doing very, very well in this bed. But I want to see if you can pan into this corner right here. You can see some volunteer petunias down here. That is last year's petunia seeds. I don't even know how they got there, but they are going strong. So I didn't even have any of those in my yard this year. As we pan into this area here, you'll see my purple fountain grass just looks amazing. By far, the best thing I think I put into this planter section was a purple fountain grass. I do love this annual salvia in here. I believe this was a play in the blue. I'll have to look it up. It's been a while since I put them in. And then these verbena did very well as well. But again, with the petunias, I don't know what to think here. Look at this petunia. One flower. Something was eating on this. We did spray it with some horticultural oil, but I don't know if we got to it quick enough. It just didn't do very well. As we go around this bed, you're going to see that we have more of our daylilies. We've got some blanket flower or some gaillardia in there. And you'll also see more of my lemon gem marigolds. They did very well in this bed. Very happy with them. And I want to share with you this one right here. This is that salvia that we were really concerned with when I cut everything back, and it's got new blooms, new growth. I don't think it's anything I need to worry about. We are now in our fire pit area, and this right here was glorious about 2 weeks ago. I do have some pictures of that and a couple of video shots, but these sunflowers right here, these are the Pro Cut Horizon, and they are beautiful. I mean, they're just gorgeous. And you've even got some secondary flowers coming. The branching sunflowers right here, just barely starting to get buds. I'm probably not going to plant those again, but my husband loves the sunflowers. So we'll do that again, probably next year. I love them in this location. And we're going to see if we can get some seeds out of them. I do have some marigolds down here, and then this glorious batch of zinnias. All of these were started from seed. I planted all of these in my house this spring, and we have cut on these. I am going to make some bouquets and take them to work as we get closer to our first frost, because I don't want to lose all this beautiful color. Now, we do have a zucchini down here. We have one plant, and this plant is doing very well. I've got several large zucchinis on it, and we've already taken off about 4 or 5. And I feel like this is doing very well. This area is doing great. But I'm going to let my husband talk for a second here and talk to you about the patio area itself.
So we finished the patio. You saw the video where I was cutting the pavers and fitting them in place. We put a border around the whole thing with bags of concrete that we mixed by hand, and then I just troweled them in with a margin trowel. And then we put the polymeric sand in between the pavers. And when we wetted that down, it kind of put a film across all the pavers, which kind of blended them together. But I'm happy with it. It's fun to walk on. There's no give in any of these pavers. And we'll finish up this video with my wife.
So in this section right here, this is all of our overflow plants. These were extras that we had that didn't fit into the garden. This is a Mountain Magic, another tomato plant right here. This is much bigger than the one that's in the raised bed, and it is needing support from both the water fountain and the chair. The support I had was not big enough for it. The Plectranthus in this back flower pot took over everything in there. You can barely see any other flowers. and I will not be planting that ivy again next year. I should have learned from last year. Now, the 2 grow bags that are here had a lot of leftover plants in them, and 2 of those plants were sweetie tomatoes, and they have done very well over here. In fact, they've overgrown their cages. But the only other things that really are doing well in these 2 bags are the marigolds, and I do have a single little green pepper right here. Not doing well otherwise. Peppers did horribly this year. I do have some hot peppers down here that are starting to turn red, and when they do, I think I'm going to go ahead and try those out for heat to see how they're doing. But I've got a few on there I think are ready for harvesting. The tomatoes that were on these did super well, and I was able to harvest about 4 baskets. I do think we'll get some more off of this, but I have had to give quite a few of them away because it's just more than my husband and I can even possibly eat. This right here is what is left of our herbs, and we have harvested pretty much everything we want off of these. I am occasionally coming out for fresh produce and fresh herbs, but most of it I have dried, dehydrated, and we are ready for winter to approach.
Well, friends, that should do it for this tour of the garden and a recap of our patio.
We hope that you've enjoyed it. We hope that if you have any questions or comments, you will leave those in the comment section down below. And if you have not subscribed to our channel, please consider
subscribing.
We hope you're having a lovely day wherever you are, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.